In the heart of a tight-knit community nestled between rolling hills and serene lakes, the local Homeowners Association (HOA) had long been recognized as a source of pride. Residents took immense care in maintaining their properties, fostering a sense of belonging that drew families in and kept them rooted for generations. However, beneath this picturesque facade lay a brewing storm that would soon challenge the very essence of harmony within the neighborhood. The land in question belonged to John, a lifelong resident who had inherited it from his parents. This parcel wasn't just any land. It was steeped in family history and memories. John cherished every inch, from the old oak tree where he played as a child to the sprawling meadow where he envisioned building his dream home someday. But unbeknownst to him, the HOA had developed plans for expansion, plans that included constructing 96 new homes on what they mistakenly believed to be available land. When John first caught wind of the proposed development during a community meeting, disbelief washed over him. The HOA proposed sleek new homes designed to attract young families, but their ambition did not account for John's rightful claim to the property. Strikingly unyielding, the board members dismissed his concerns, suggesting that his claims were frivolous and merely an obstacle in their vision for community growth. As weeks turned into months, tension simmered just beneath the surface. On one hand, neighbors rallied behind John in support. On the other hand, some believed development was essential for progress and prosperity. This division began to fracture relationships that had once been built on trust. What began as an ambitious plan by the HOA now threatened to unravel years of camaraderie, setting stage for an unexpected clash between progress and preservation. One that would ultimately lead John down an uncharted path filled with resilience and cunning strategy. The day John stumbled upon the HOA's plans felt like a bolt out of the blue. It was a crisp autumn evening, the kind that carried a hint of nostalgia as he strolled through the community park, admiring the vibrant leaves. He had always felt secure in his ownership of the land, but as he reached the community bulletin board, a bright flyer caught his eye. It boldly announced a public meeting to discuss the development of 96 new homes, complete with diagrams showing how they would fit into what John knew to be his cherished property. Panic surged through him. He read the details again, disbelief morphing into anger. How could they consider building on land that had been in his family for decades? The emotional weight was overwhelming. It was not merely about property rights, but about the memories intertwined with every corner of that land. The oak tree that stood tall and proud had witnessed countless family gatherings, while the meadow had been a sanctuary for his dreams. At the meeting, John's heart raced as he listened to the HOA members enthusiastically present their vision for a new and improved neighborhood. Their excitement contrasted sharply with his internal turmoil. When he finally spoke up, voicing his concerns and asserting his ownership, he was met with dismissive glances and condescending remarks. The board members portrayed his objections as mere sentimental attachments rather than legitimate claims. As he left the meeting, frustration mingled with a sense of isolation. Friends and neighbors seemed divided. Some supported him, while others viewed the development as necessary progress. Each interaction felt charged with tension, transforming a once cohesive community into a battleground of conflicting interests. John realized he couldn't allow this trespass to go unchallenged. The stakes were too high, and he was determined to protect his family's legacy. Determined to reclaim his family's land, John plunged headfirst into the complex world of property rights. Armed with a sense of urgency, he spent countless hours at the local library, poring over legal texts and historical property records. The shelves were lined with dusty volumes, but he found solace in their pages, each filled with precedents that might bolster his case. It was a daunting task, yet John's resolve only deepened as he uncovered how land ownership laws had evolved over the years. During his research, John learned about easements, zoning laws, and the importance of title deeds. He discovered that his family's original deed contained specific language outlining boundaries and usage rights that were crucial to his claim. Each detail became a piece of a larger puzzle he was determined to solve. He meticulously documented everything: maps, photographs of the land, and family histories that tied him to it. This evidence would not only reinforce his ownership but also serve as a testament to the emotional significance the land held for him. Realizing he needed expert guidance, John reached out to a local attorney specializing in real estate law. Their first meeting took place in a small office filled with framed diplomas and legal jargon that felt both intimidating and reassuring. The attorney listened attentively as John shared his story and presented his findings. Together, they strategized on how best to approach the HOA's dismissal of his claims. As weeks passed, John's confidence grew alongside his knowledge. He attended community workshops about property rights and engaged in conversations with other residents facing similar issues. This newfound camaraderie illuminated the reality that he was not alone in this fight. Many shared concerns about preserving their homes against encroaching developments. Empowered by this support network and armed with legal knowledge, John felt ready to confront the HOA once more, prepared not just as a homeowner but as an advocate for property rights within his community. With newfound determination, John began to lay the groundwork for his strategy to expose the HOA's oversight. He focused on solidifying his evidence and devising a plan that would turn their presumptions about his land into a misstep they could not ignore. Gathering documentation became his primary objective. He meticulously compiled a comprehensive portfolio that included maps outlining his property boundaries, a copy of the original deed, and even historical photographs that showcased long-standing features and family events tied to the land. John knew that he needed to approach this matter from multiple angles. Inspired by his attorney's guidance, he researched potential legal avenues that could bolster his case. One critical element was identifying any discrepancies in zoning laws that the HOA might have overlooked or misunderstood in their eagerness to develop. This involved combing through county resources and meeting with local planning officials, where he carefully asked questions about property classifications and any recent changes affecting development permits. Conversations with fellow residents played a pivotal role in his strategy. As he shared his findings, many neighbors who had supported him expressed their own stake in the land and their fears about the HOA's plans. They began gathering their own documentation, contributing additional evidence that painted a broader picture of ownership complexities in the community. John crafted a deliberate plan to confront the HOA during an upcoming board meeting. He envisioned presenting his organized portfolio of evidence, confidently detailing the HOA's miscalculations in a way that left no room for doubt. He even considered inviting a few neighbors to join him, turning what could be perceived as a solitary complaint into a united front against an administration that had disregarded their rightful claims. By combining meticulous preparation with the power of community support, John felt ready to ensnare the HOA in the very trap they had laid for themselves, poised to reclaim not only his land but also to restore balance within his community. As the date of the board meeting approached, tensions between John and the HOA representatives escalated dramatically. John arrived early, determined to secure a seat at the front, armed with his meticulously organized portfolio. He could feel the palpable energy in the room as residents filed in, some casting him supportive glances, while others appeared skeptical about his endeavor against the established HOA leadership. When the meeting commenced, John watched as HOA President Mrs. Collins confidently presented their development plans, her tone dismissive of any opposition. As she described the benefits of new homes, enhanced property values, and increased community engagement, John felt a rising tide of frustration. It was time to intervene. With a steady hand, he stood up and introduced himself, presenting his evidence with clarity and conviction. His voice gained strength as he pointed out discrepancies in zoning laws and outlined how the HOA had miscalculated their claims over his land. The board's reaction was immediate. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as he laid bare their error. Mrs. Collins attempted to interrupt him, but John's determination only intensified. "What you are proposing is not just a development project," he declared. "It's a violation of my family's rightful ownership." The tension in the air shifted significantly. It was no longer just John's fight. It had become a community issue. In response to his passionate plea, some board members resorted to intimidation tactics, questioning his credibility and implying that he was merely trying to stifle progress for personal gain. John remained composed, reminding them that this was about preserving a legacy, which resonated with many present. Afterward, conversations among attendees grew heated. Neighbors expressed their support for John's stance while others feared possible repercussions from the HOA if they sided with him. As alliances formed and frayed under pressure, it became clear that this confrontation had set off a chain reaction that would shape the future dynamics of their community, and for John, it marked just the beginning of an escalating battle where stakes were increasingly high. In the wake of the heated board meeting, John recognized that confronting the HOA alone was not a sustainable strategy. He needed to rally support from fellow residents to amplify his voice. With a renewed sense of purpose, he embarked on a mission to reach out to neighboring landowners and community members who shared his concerns about the encroachment on their properties. John began by organizing informal gatherings in his backyard, inviting anyone willing to discuss the HOA's plans and their potential impact on the community. The atmosphere at these meetings was charged with both anxiety and determination as neighbors exchanged stories of their own experiences and frustrations. He made it clear that this was not just his fight but a shared struggle for all homeowners at risk of losing their rights. One evening, after discussing strategies over homemade lemonade, a neighbor named Sarah suggested forming a coalition, a homeowners alliance devoted to standing against the HOA's development plans. Her idea resonated deeply with others, igniting conversations about collective action. As word spread, more families joined their cause, each bringing unique perspectives and resources to strengthen their position. John took it upon himself to coordinate efforts among this growing coalition. They established an online platform for sharing documents and updates, creating a united front against the HOA's tactics. Members began attending board meetings together, presenting a cohesive narrative that was hard for the HOA to dismiss outright. The coalition also brainstormed ways to communicate with those still undecided about supporting John's fight. Flyers were distributed throughout the neighborhood outlining the consequences of unchecked development and emphasizing how preserving individual property rights benefited everyone. As they collaborated, allies discovered newfound strength in numbers. Each member's commitment solidified their resolve. They were no longer just concerned individuals but a formidable group advocating for their rights and community integrity. With each passing day, John felt bolstered by this camaraderie, and together they prepared for what would inevitably become an even bigger showdown with the HOA. After weeks of organizing and rallying support from his neighbors, John knew it was time to escalate the fight against the HOA with legal action. With his attorney's guidance, he filed a formal complaint in local court, detailing the HOA's overreach regarding the development plans that encroached on his land. The process was daunting. John carefully navigated through piles of paperwork, ensuring that every document was properly filled out and submitted on time. The anticipation grew as he shared updates during coalition meetings, each resident eager to hear how the legal proceedings would unfold. In the days leading up to the court date, tension hung in the air like a heavy fog. John reviewed his evidence again and again, land maps, deeds, and testimonies from neighbors supporting his claims, hoping they would hold up under scrutiny. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed with interested residents who had come to lend their support. As John entered, he felt a mix of anxiety and determination. He could feel the weight of his family's legacy resting on his shoulders. The opposing counsel represented the HOA with calculated confidence, ready to dismiss John's claims as merely emotional rather than legally substantive. As arguments commenced, John listened intently while both sides presented their cases. The judge's expression remained inscrutable as evidence was introduced and arguments were articulated. John's attorney highlighted zoning law violations and how the HOA had ignored crucial details regarding property ownership rights. The stirring debates resonated through the courtroom. John felt encouraged by the judge's engagement with their arguments. As he awaited the judge's decision, John sensed an overwhelming solidarity among those present. Supportive murmurs in the audience reminded him that this wasn't just about one piece of land. It was about standing up for what was right within their community. The outcome of the showdown held not just personal stakes for John but also implications for the future of all homeowners facing similar challenges against powerful associations like theirs. With every passing moment, he could feel hope intermingling with apprehension as they collectively prepared for whatever verdict awaited them. The trial began with an air of palpable tension, the courtroom filled with anxious spectators who had come to witness the clash between John and the HOA. As John sat at the plaintiff's table, he glanced at the opposing counsel, who wore a confident smirk. The judge entered, establishing order, and the proceedings commenced with opening statements. John's attorney was first to present, articulating their case against the HOA's development plans. With precision, he laid out how the HOA had violated zoning laws and ignored John's rightful claims to his inherited land, framing it as not just a legal battle but a fight for community integrity. Witnesses began to take the stand. Fellow residents whose properties bordered John's, and their testimonies painted a vivid picture of the impact that development would have on their family lives. As one neighbor described how her children played in the fields where houses were planned, her voice trembled with emotion. It resonated deeply in the courtroom, uniting those present in solidarity. The atmosphere shifted. What once felt like John's singular struggle now seemed like a collective fight for preservation. But then came a surprising twist. During cross-examination, the HOA's attorney inadvertently revealed discrepancies in their own documentation regarding property boundaries. A gasp rippled through the room as John's attorney seized this moment to pivot. He requested access to additional documents that had not been disclosed prior to court. arguing that they could be crucial for establishing ownership clarity. After a brief recess for deliberation, the judge agreed to allow further evidence to be presented. The momentum shifted drastically. John's confidence surged as he realized how precariously balanced the case had become for the HOA. In subsequent hearings, John's attorney unveiled these new findings, maps illustrating inconsistencies in HOA claims as well as historical records confirming John's long-standing ownership. With each piece of evidence, hope flickered in John's heart. He could almost sense victory on the horizon. As closing arguments loomed, he felt invigorated by not just legal support but also a community rallying behind him, a true testament to their resolve against injustice. After days of deliberation, the courtroom finally buzzed with anticipation as the judge returned to announce the verdict. John sat at the edge of his seat, his heart racing as he exchanged anxious glances with his attorney and the supporting residents who filled the benches behind him. The judge cleared his throat and began by acknowledging the complexity of the case, remarking on the importance of community rights versus development interests. Finally, the verdict emerged. The court upheld John's claims against the HOA, ruling that their development plans were indeed in violation of zoning laws and overstepped property boundaries. A ripple of emotion surged through the audience, with some residents holding back tears and others erupting in quiet cheers. John felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Finally, his family's legacy was safe. The implications of this ruling were monumental not only for John but also for the HOA and its future projects. The court mandated that the HOA cease all current developments on John's land and required them to reassess any future plans with greater scrutiny regarding property ownership rights. Furthermore, the ruling could set a legal precedent that empowered other homeowners in the community to contest similar actions against unwarranted development encroachments. Yet, amid the celebration, John's attorney cautioned that there were potential repercussions for the HOA's leadership. The judge pointed out that failure to comply with this ruling could lead to severe financial penalties and further legal ramifications for board members personally involved in propelling unauthorized projects. This warning added gravity to the decision and hinted at accountability that might not have existed before. As John left the courthouse, surrounded by supportive neighbors, he felt hopeful for the first time in months. Their collective fight had not only protected his family's land but had forged a deeper sense of community among residents who now recognized their power against larger entities. Together, they left the courthouse buoyed by victory, ready to continue standing up for their rights and shaping a future where their voices mattered. In the aftermath of the trial, John reflected deeply on the journey he had undertaken, both personally and collectively with his community. The experience forever altered his perspective on property rights and community engagement. Previously viewed as a solitary owner with legal claims to his land, he now recognized the power of unity among homeowners. Standing shoulder to shoulder with his neighbors had not only fortified his resolve but had also transformed him into an advocate for the broader community. John learned that property rights encompass more than just boundaries on a map. They include a responsibility to protect shared interests against potential encroachments. The conflict illuminated how easily misunderstandings could escalate into adversarial situations when residents felt isolated and uninformed. He understood that knowledge is power, and in light of this, he committed to sharing legal lessons that could empower others in similar circumstances. Informal workshops soon became a part of his routine, focusing on educating neighbors about zoning laws, property rights, and how to effectively voice their concerns at HOA meetings. Moreover, John's victory instilled hope within the community and ignited discussions about future developments. Residents began taking a more active role in local governance, recognizing that their voices mattered. They organized regular meetings to discuss potential projects within the neighborhood, ensuring that everyone was informed and engaged in decisions affecting their homes. As he walked through the now peaceful streets of his neighborhood, John felt a renewed sense of belonging and responsibility. The struggle had fostered deeper connections with his neighbors and transformed what could have been a divisive issue into a rallying cry for collaboration and proactive leadership. He was no longer just a homeowner. He had become part of a strong coalition ready to protect their community from any future threats together, fostering lasting change in how they approached challenges ahead.